The moment word spread that 50 Cent was quietly building a documentary centered around him, T.I. didn't hesitate. He made a move that felt calculated, cold, and dangerously personal. He allegedly unleashed compromising footage of Boosie into the shadows, and now, Boosie isn't just uncomfortable, he's unraveling. Around 0.08 seconds of that footage is rumored to appear in the final cut, and insiders say it's the kind of material that doesn't just embarrass, it destroys reputations. But to understand how things spiraled to the point where T.I. is supposedly feeding explosive content to 50 Cent, you have to rewind to the moment an old war reignited in 2026. Because this wasn't new, it was unfinished business. Their tension stretches back nearly 20 years. It all traces back to 2006, when both men were dominating the culture. 50 Cent stood at the helm of G-Unit, while T.I. crowned himself the king of the South. And beneath the surface, subtle jabs started flying. Quiet shots, coded lines, the rivalry brewing in plain sight. For years it simmered. Not peace, just silence. Until February 2026 shattered it completely. Everything exploded during Super Bowl weekend. In what seemed like a casual conversation on Nightcap, T.I. suddenly put 50 on blast, accusing him of dodging a Versus battle. It didn't stop there. On $1 million worth of game, Tip doubled down, revealing what he claimed was a behind-the-scenes agreement between them to finally face off. According to him, the plan was simple. He would be the one to break the news publicly. But then something shifted. On the podcast hosted by Gilly the Kid and Wallow, T.I. painted a different picture. One where 50 allegedly backed out and acted like the entire deal never existed. Like it was all in Tip's head. That wasn't just a disagreement, that was disrespect. And just like that, the fuse was lit. Now T.I. wasn't just speaking, he was calling 50 Cent out in front of the world, accusing him of folding under pressure and rewriting the narrative. For someone like Tip, whose entire image is built on never retreating, that kind of public contradiction couldn't slide. This wasn't about music anymore, it was about pride, about dominance, about legacy. And then, right on cue, 50 Cent stepped in. Not quietly, not subtly. As clips from $1 million worth of game began circulating everywhere, 50 finally responded, and it was exactly what T.I. had been provoking. But what Tip may have underestimated is just how ruthless 50 can get when he decides to play the game publicly. Because once he locks in, there are no limits. And this time, things didn't just get messy. They got vicious. 50 didn't drop a song. He dropped something colder. 2 images, surgical, deliberate. The first, a brutally unflattering shot of Tiny Harris, blasted across his Instagram with a warning that read like a threat. Keep my name out your mouth. No humor, no filter, just intent. Then came the second post, one that felt even more calculated. He mocked T.I.'s son, King Harris, reducing him to a meme, comparing him to Pepe the Frog. It wasn't random, it was psychological, because this is how 50 Cent fights. Not with verses, at least not anymore. He doesn't rush to the booth. He doesn't trade bars like it's 2006. He trolls. He weaponizes the internet. He turns families into targets and humiliation into content. And when that photo of Tiny hit the timeline, something shifted. A boundary T.I. didn't think would be crossed was. And now, it wasn't just beef. It was personal. T.I. responded the only way he knows how, by going to war on wax. Not 1 record. Not 2. 4. War, the right one, lessons, and what bully. Each one louder, sharper, more aggressive than the last. And it didn't stop with him. His sons, King Harris and Domani Harris, stepped in too. This wasn't a back and forth anymore. This was a full-scale campaign. Strategic. Relentless. T.I. wasn't just replying, he was trying to overwhelm. On the right one, he branded 50 a 5-0 dispatcher, a coded accusation, painting him as a snitch hiding behind a screen. A man loud online, but silent in real life. Then came Lessons, a track critics started calling his most focused, most dangerous in years. There was hunger in his voice, like he had something to prove, something to reclaim. And by the time What Bully dropped, the message was clear. T.I. was attacking 50's image head-on, questioning whether the so-called tough guy would ever face real consequences outside the internet. Even DJ academics couldn't ignore it, drawing comparisons to Drake versus Kendrick, placing this feud among the most explosive rivalries of 2026. But while T.I. was flooding the streets with music, one question kept echoing louder than the tracks themselves. Where was 50? Because he wasn't in the studio. He never was. Instead, he stayed exactly where he's most dangerous. Online. Posting. Calculating. Provoking. No diss track. No verse. Just a steady stream of memes, jabs, and images aimed directly at T.I. and his family. And somehow that made it worse. Because when 50 Cent doesn't respond with music, he responds with something far more unpredictable. Something harder to control, harder to contain. Content, footage, narratives. And that's where this stops being a rap beef and turns into something else entirely. Because before the documentary, before the footage, there was King Harris. And his involvement? That's what pushed everything past the point of return. Even T.I. admitted that. 50 lit that fire, and King walked straight into it. On February 22nd, the 21-year-old didn't stay silent. He went live on Instagram, furious, unfiltered, unloading after seeing his mother dragged into the chaos. This wasn't PR. This wasn't calculated. This was raw. And he made it clear, no one disrespects his mother and gets away with it. But then he said something that changed everything. Looking straight into the camera, King brought up 50 Cent's mother, Sabrina Jackson, who died in 1983. And what he said next was beyond disrespect. He told 50 to go dig her up. That wasn't just a diss. That was a line being obliterated, directed at a man who lost his mother at 8 years old. That alone could have detonated the situation. But King didn't stop there. He stepped deeper into the war, dropping his own response. Madman, his first real shot fired in a battle that was already spiraling out of control. And just when it seemed like things couldn't escalate any further, King came back with another move, a second diss track, this time titled Solace. And it wasn't subtle. It was direct, focused, and aimed straight at 50. From the opening lines, King made one thing clear: his loyalty to his mother wasn't up for debate. No matter the cost, no matter the fallout. But the track wasn't what shook the internet. It was what came after. The t-shirt. King Harris stepped out wearing something that instantly ignited outrage. A shirt printed with the face of 50 Cent's late mother, Sabrina Jackson. A woman who died in a tragic apartment fire when 50 was just 8 years old. It wasn't just disrespect, it felt calculated. And within minutes, the image spread everywhere. Then Rick Ross entered the chat. Never one to miss a moment like this. He jumped into the comments with a message that only amplified the chaos. Need that tea in a 3x, slow bro. That cosign changed everything. Now it wasn't just a family dispute, it was a public spectacle. The internet split in real time. Some defended King, saying he was standing up for his mother after she'd been humiliated. Others said he crossed a line you don't come back from, dragging a deceased woman into a war she had nothing to do with. Even T.I. couldn't ignore it. In fact, he admitted it himself, things had gone too far. During an interview on the Ebro in the Morning Show with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg, Tipton tried to dodge it. When asked about his sons jumping into the conflict, his tone shifted. "No, I don't enjoy it," he said. "I spent so much time trying to pull him back from the edge, and now he's got a reason to undo everything I taught him." You could hear it, conflict, not just with 50 but within his own family. T.I. explained it deeper. He spoke about discipline, about raising his children to move with logic, with restraint, to think before reacting. But then he acknowledged the reality. When millions of people are laughing at your mother online, logic doesn't stand a chance. Emotion takes over. And in that moment, he understood exactly why his sons reacted the way they did. But understanding it didn't mean he accepted it. When he saw that t-shirt, everything stopped. "That's enough," he said. He recalled telling King to fall back, to chill. Because for him, there was still a code. "I treat people how I want to be treated," he explained. "I don't go out here doing things to others that I wouldn't accept myself." But the response he got? It was colder. "This is retaliation. It's already done. Let it go." And just like that, control slipped. Then came the moment that pushed the situation into even darker territory. Demony Harris, T.I.'s eldest son, entered the battlefield. At 24 years old, he dropped a nearly 4-minute diss track titled Miss Jackson. And this wasn't just a jab, it was layered, deliberate. Sampling Outkast's classic, he flipped something nostalgic into something unsettling. Because this time, the lyrics weren't just aimed at 50. They were aimed at his mother, directly. In the track, Demony questions Sabrina Jackson, asking if she's proud of the man her son has become. And beneath the surface, there were tones that sounded less like music and more like warning shots. Again, the reaction split wide open. Some called it fearless. Others called it unforgivable. But one thing was undeniable now. This was no longer just between T.I. and 50 Cent. This had become a family war. When 50 targeted Tiny, the response didn't just come from Tip. It came from his sons. And they didn't hold back. They escalated. They personalized it. They turned it into something much bigger than rap. And then everything went quiet. On March 2nd, 2026, in a move nobody saw coming, 50 Cent wiped his page clean. Every post aimed at T.I. gone. Deleted. No explanation. No follow-up. Just silence. To some, it looked like retreat. But anyone who understands 50 Cent knows, that's never what silence means. Silence is preparation. Because when 50 disappears, it's not over. It's just shifting. And this time, what he was working on wasn't a post or a joke, or even a diss track. It was something far more permanent, more damaging, Because 50 doesn't just win battles with music anymore. He wins them with strategy, with business, with storytelling. And his most dangerous weapon? It isn't his voice. It's the camera. And this time, the lens was pointed somewhere no one expected. Sean Diddy Combs. The Reckoning. An American documentary miniseries that didn't just tell a story, it exposed one. Focused on the sexual misconduct allegations surrounding rapper Sean Diddy Combs, the project was directed by Alexandria Stapleton and released on Netflix on December 2nd, 2025. But behind the scenes, there was a name pulling the strings: 50 Cent. He didn't just attach his name, he executive produced the entire series. And this wasn't something that appeared overnight. Back on December 7th, 2023, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson publicly announced he was developing a documentary centered on Combs, promising that proceeds would go toward alleged victims. From the beginning, this wasn't casual. It was calculated, and it was big. Within just 6 days of release, the numbers told the real story: 21.8 million views. Enough to make it the second most watched title on Netflix that week, right behind Volume 1 of Stranger Things Season 5. That kind of reach changes everything. Because at that level, 50 Cent isn't just an artist anymore, he's infrastructure. A media force. Someone who can assemble a 4-part series, land it on the biggest streaming platform in the world, and pull tens of millions of eyes in less than a week. And then came the part no one saw coming. The footage. Clips that, according to insiders, Diddy himself didn't even know existed in that context. Rumors started flying, contract disputes, hidden deals, but those were quickly shut down. Diddy's own videographer stepped forward, claiming there was no secret fallout. Instead, he suggested something far more unsettling: that the footage slipped through because of a temporary freelancer brought in to fill a gap. A small decision with massive consequences. By the time Combs realized what had happened, it was already too late. His team reportedly sent a cease and desist to Netflix before the series even aired. But the machine was already moving. The release didn't stop. The footage stayed in. And the impact? Irreversible. Then 50 did what he always does: he leaned in. After the documentary exploded, he revealed something that shifted the narrative again. There wasn't just more story. There were over 140 hours of unreleased footage that never made it into the final cut. 140 hours. And during an appearance on the Sherry Shepherd show, he didn't sound hesitant. He sounded amused. When asked about a follow-up, he smirked and said he could just drop the raw clips straight onto YouTube. No filter, no structure, just content. That's when people started to understand this isn't about music anymore. It's about control. So when 50 Cent suddenly went silent in early March 2026, those paying attention didn't see weakness, they saw a pattern. Because this is what he does. He disappears before the strike. He repositions before the reveal. A man who just dominated the streaming world with one of the most talked about documentaries of the year doesn't walk away from a conflict like this. He evolves it. And that's exactly what happened. Because not long after, whispers started turning into headlines. 50 Cent hinting, subtly but intentionally, that his next project might center around T.I. and Tiny Harris. Allegations. Investigations. A new narrative forming. Then came the post. Now deleted, but not before it spread everywhere. A screenshot of a headline: 50 Cent reportedly developing Surviving T.I. and Tiny documentary. And the caption? That's where it got personal. Remember how quiet I got before the Diddy doc? You thought I wasn't coming. That wasn't a joke. That was a warning. Because this wouldn't be new for him. The idea that T.I. might have sent footage of Boosie to 50 Cent doesn't feel random. It fits a pattern. Back during their 2023 fallout, Boosie went on camera and called T.I. a rat. That clip went everywhere. T.I., in return, filmed himself publicly challenging Boosie, daring him to confront the paperwork. Those clips spread just as fast. And right in the middle of that, 50 Cent watching, collecting. He didn't stay out of it, he inserted himself, posting memes, stitching together Boosie's Vlad TV outburst with T.I.'s own podcast confession, turning both of their words into ammunition. He was already experimenting back then, testing how far he could push it using nothing but what they gave him. So the idea that more footage could land in his hands now, it's not far-fetched. It's evolution. But here's where it gets even more interesting. T.I. isn't ducking the conversation. He's leaning into it, publicly. On Instagram, he fired back with a message that sounded less like defense and more like a challenge. We can go bar for bar, hit for hit, or doc for doc. Doc for doc. That wasn't accidental. That was a direct shot at 50's new battlefield. And T.I. doubled down, basically telling him, release whatever you've got. He's not running. He even hinted that he could flip the script and do the same in return. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't an even fight anymore. Because while T.I. can rap, respond, and post, 50 Cent builds machines. He has the infrastructure, the streaming relationships, the production company, the receipts. He just came off executive producing one of the most talked about documentaries of the year. This isn't theory for him. It's a proven formula. Even voices like Tasha K have pointed it out. suggesting that 50 may already be shifting from trolling to production mode. And if that's true, then this isn't about jokes anymore. It's about narrative control. Because the allegations tied to T.I. and Tiny, they're serious. Lawsuits, accusations from multiple women, claims that, if placed under a documentary spotlight, wouldn't just trend. They would dominate headlines. The kind of material that doesn't fade after a few days. The kind that sticks. And yet, while all of this is building in the background, T.I. is winning somewhere else. On the charts. After years away from that level, he's back in the Billboard Hot 100 Top 40 with Let Them Know, peaking at number 38. The track is climbing. His album is gaining traction. Radio is spinning him again. So on one side, you have 50 Cent threatening long-form exposure. On the other, you have T.I. reclaiming visibility. But visibility cuts both ways. Because attention doesn't just amplify success, it amplifies everything. And people have seen this play out before. When 50 first teased the Diddy documentary, many dismissed it, said he was trolling, said it would never materialize. Then it dropped. And in 6 days, over 21 million people watched it. That's not trolling. That's execution. Which brings us back to the wild card in all of this, Boosie. Because his role isn't simple. He has footage of himself going at T.I. T.I. has footage of himself going at Boosie. And 50? He's already shown he's willing to take both sides and turn them into one narrative. So whether T.I. actually sent footage directly or whether 50 is simply pulling from the endless archive of the internet, the outcome doesn't really change. The content exists. And in the hands of someone who treats documentaries like weapons, that content doesn't stay small. It evolves. It expands. It becomes something bigger than a feud ever was. 50 may have wiped his page. He may have gone quiet, but he already told everyone what that means. Remember how quiet I got before the Diddy doc? That wasn't nostalgia. That was a signal. Now, is there officially a surviving T.I. and Tiny documentary in production? No confirmed announcement. No release date. Nothing concrete. Just rumors, pushed by voices like Tasha K, echoed across blogs, and fueled by 50's own cryptic posts before he deleted them. And that's what makes it more dangerous. Because it exists in that space between rumor and reality, where anticipation grows faster than facts. Meanwhile, all the pieces are sitting there. Boosie calling T.I. a rat. T.I. telling his side on record. Diss tracks. Interviews. Live streams. An entire digital paper trail, just waiting to be assembled. And here's the question nobody can answer yet. If T.I. really did hand over footage of Boosie, someone he once reconciled with, someone tied to his circle, that's not strategy. That's sacrifice. That's burning a bridge to survive a bigger war. And if that's true, then this situation isn't just messy. It's personal on a level we haven't fully seen yet. What we do know is simple. 50 Cent is circling a documentary. T.I. says he's ready for it. Boosie sits in the middle, with history on both sides. And 50 has already proven what he can do with footage like this. So now everything comes down to one move. Does he press record? Because if the past taught us anything, it's that when 50 Cent goes silent, that's when the real story is about to begin.